What's up, everybody? We are on another episode of the Headspace podcast, and today I am here with Ashlinn Ray. Ashlinn Ray Wedding Day.
That's right.
Thanks for coming out and being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
Now we know each other. We know each other from working together in sales. And when I first met you, you were, I wouldn't say you were green in sales, but it was kind of your first sales gig. You'd done a bunch of other stuff that we're going to definitely talk about in business before you jumped into the sales world. But we meshed together really well, spent a lot of time together doing that insurance sales and whatnot here in St. Louis. But I want to go back. I want to start, because I know you graduated high school very early. I want to start what the path was like to get where you are today, because I would consider you to be, someone who's a very successful businesswoman in your own right, still very young, still very moving towards some much bigger things. You're crushing right now. But I want to start the podcast by going back and hearing that origin story, if you will, of how you got out of high school early, why, and then what you went into.
Well, you said a couple of really nice things to me there. Number one, that I wasn't green in sales. I'm so green in sales. I don't know why they even took me in. And secondary, that I'm still pretty young, because I don't feel that way. But anyway, yeah, it was kind of by mistake the way that everything happened. I ended up having all of my credits that I needed in high school by the time I was 16. And one of my friends in high school's mom owned a salon. And my mom had gone to cosmetology school, and my grandma had gone to cosmetology school. So they tell me that I have all of my credits done, and they start putting me in all of these insane, wood shop and fax and sewing and cooking. And I'm like, first of all, I'm never going to do any of those things. And so one day this guidance counselor comes in, and she's like, did you know that you guys can go to this alternate school and learn one of 45 trades, and you'll have more flexibility, you'll be able to drive yourself there and, meet people outside of your home school. And so I'm thanking God, because I'm getting into so much trouble in school because I won't shut up. I'm in the hallway asking for hall passes. I'm not going at this point because I'm bored.
Yeah.
And so I take
How interesting that person had the foresight. Like, you look at the landscape now and you're like, man, if you went to trade school, you're actually ahead of the game, which, again, you are. Sorry to cut you off, but that's huge.
Could not agree more. So I take all of this paperwork home to my mom, and I say, so this nice lady came in. I've got the solution to all of your problems. I won't be grounded as much because I'm going to go to an alternate school for culinary. And she goes, no, you're not. You will never make any money in culinary. You're going to hate the hours and whatnot. And so we kind of go back and forth, and I go, okay, fine. Well, what if I go for cosmetology? You and my grandma went for cosmetology, and she says, you'll never make any money still, but I'm better with that than I am the other thing. So I'm like, okay, great. And so she lets me sign up, and it's this big process of who's the most qualified, because they can only accept 25 people. And I'm thinking, it's really going to tick me off if I'm not one of those 25 people. And so thankfully I get in, and she goes, now, I didn't tell you this when you first got into cosmetology school, but if you're going to be on the floor doing clients practicing, they'll also tip you. I'm like, cha-ching, a $2 tip when you're 16 is pretty good. So I'm really looking forward to this. And so long story short, they ask us on the first day, okay, what are you going to do when you graduate? And I've been so conditioned into this thought of college, and I had gotten all of these scholarships from either pageantry or academics or whatever. So I say to my instructor, I'm only doing this so that I can support myself through college. And she's like, oh, okay, great. And then I did all of these competitions for them, and I had come in first in Missouri in academics and cosmetology, and fourth in the nation in academics and cosmetology, and that was still unfair because I fainted. It was the only time in my life I fainted, so I deserve that number one spot.
You can't pass over that. You have to tell a little brief. We got time. You fainted during the competition?
No, so we were at the hotel that we were
And this
going
is
to.
a
This
national
is a national competition,
hairstyle,
but
cosmetology.
national, and remember, you're including now Puerto Rico and Guam.
Okay, so national plus a little bit.
Plus a little bit. Okay, so I'm staying in the hotel, which I'm not used to, with 3 other competitors. I want to stay in my own room, preferably a suite if I can get it, if I'm being honest, okay? And so I am one of these people that care so much about doing well at things and being the best at things that I had just gotten myself so nervous that morning because I had to win. I could taste the win on my lips. And so I work myself up. I got up 2 hours earlier than my competition just to plot. And I get freaked out and nervous. And I'm walking in my hotel room and I faint like a goat, like one of those fainting goats, face plant onto the floor. Okay. So, like, after you faint, I had never fainted before. I didn't feel well.
Okay.
And
Did you have a little dream?
I dreamed that I needed to get up and compete. So then I look in the mirror and I'm like scuffed on my face in a few places and I'm like, oh, that'll take a little bit of repair work today. But so then we go to the competition and all day you just have that kind of like haze that you fainted, but I didn't tell anybody I had fainted. I had just like eaten a granola bar and kept working like an American should. And yeah, I think that it kind of prevented me from performing my best.
Okay.
And Mike Rowe was the speaker because it wasn't just
Are
cosmetology.
you Dirty Jobs Micro?
What other?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was a bunch of other trades too that were competing. So
Okay.
he was like our motivational guy that presented rewards and whatever. So I'm like, between the competition and getting to meet Mike Rowe, I was in a tender
Yeah.
place. And so I got 4th nationally. Obviously, the faint had something to do with it. And I never told my mom I had fainted. So after the award ceremony, she kind of like took my hair back and is like, "What's that?" And I go, "Oh no, don't worry about that. I just fainted this morning."
Yeah.
She freaked out. So then after that, I graduate and my instructor's like, "Well, what are you going to do now?" And I said, "Well, now I want to figure out how to get your job." And she's like, "You're kidding. You didn't even want to do that. Now you want to do my job?" And I go, "Yeah, I'm still going to go to college, but I want to do your job too." And she was like, "Oh my gosh, you're just so nuts." And then I started working in a salon for like half of a second, like a year. And then, sure enough, went through instructor training at Paul Mitchell the School St. Louis and was an educator by the time I was 19.
Now, the reason I wanted to talk about that is because when I first met you, I was doing sales, but behind the scene, I was scheming and working on what I'm doing now, right? And very much so in the same fashion, you sat behind me and I'd be doing, I'd be halfway involved in sales and halfway in doing something else. And you'd just be typing away, typing away, typing away, typing away. And most of our job is on the phone, talking to people and trying to, find out their needs and then putting together contracts. And the contracts are not as much typing as you're doing. And you're just doing too much typing over there. And so finally, it's like, what are you doing? Listen, you're not doing this job. You're doing something else. And so you're like, shh, keep it down over there. And I'm like, well, no, tell me. Well, I do I do course curriculum for Paul Mitchell. And I'm like, and again, with your personality, it's half joke, half serious. Love your personality. That's why we got along so good. I'm like, shut up. Tell me what's really going on. You're like, no, this is real. I'm actually working this other job and they pay me to do a course and I have to put this course together. It's last minute. They wanted some changes. So I knew right away that you were someone who was going to achieve whatever you put your mind to, sitting at again, our job, sales was commission only. Like sitting at a commission only job, which in of itself, usually those people are go-getters, right?
Yes.
Then on top of that, using your spare time in the commissions only job to work another job, which I was also doing with our backs turned to each other was serendipitous to say the least. So how long did you do the curriculum job?
Yeah, so that was how that worked out is after the death of George Floyd, the biggest textbook company.
Now, this is you're after 16, graduated already. Like, how old are you here?
I've been an educator, dipped my toe in corporate training and everything. At the point where I start doing 1099 work for the biggest textbook company, I am 24 years old.
And that's right about the time that I met you, maybe a couple years removed, plus or minus.
Yes, exactly.
And so how long were you doing the textbook thing before you transitioned into Ashley Ray Wedding Day, or were those simultaneously going on as well? Were you triple dipping?
Triple, maybe quadruple dipping at that time because I was still also selling real estate. And so...
Oh my God, I forgot about the real estate.
So
That's
I'm
right.
like, anything that'll pay me money, I'll do it.
And you sold a house while you had just started. And one of the other days, I was, you're typing away, and I'm like, "What are you doing? Doing tech stuff?" You're like, "No, I sold the house." I'm like, "Shut up! You did not sell a house."
And it was like, I can't remember what state it was even in, but
Yeah.
it wasn't here.
Just slinging paper.
Yeah, and they will still, the textbook company will still actually reach out to me, and I'll pass up on the work generally at this time, but there's not been an end date to that. Whenever they needed a project, they would bring me in as what they would call a subject matter expert, whether it be to create and write curriculum or to create educator support materials, videos, etc.
Very cool.
And yeah, probably one of the coolest experiences that I've gotten to do in my professional career for them.
Awesome.
Not the most fun though, of course, because there's a lot of back and forth. Oh, that wasn't what we wanted. What if we changed it to this? So ultimately, that's why I don't do it anymore.
As most 1099 work is.
Yeah.
Any 1099 work, we ran into that. I was talking to Nate earlier. I ran into that today. Client called out of nowhere, "Hey, I know we said we were going in this direction. Board didn't like it. After all, we redo everything." It's like, ugh.
And the pay is never as good as you think it's going to be either, because if they reach out to you for a project and they say the pay on it is $5,000, at first it seems like, oh yeah, this seems simple and that seems like adequate pay for this. But then, you're 8 months into the thing and have only gotten half up front and you're like, this was not worth it at all. And so for those reasons, I have stepped back.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, so just to catch everybody up, we are 24-ish, doing a little bit of sales, doing a little bit of real estate, doing a little bit of textbook work, and in the salon, Ashlinn Ray Wedding Day. Explain how that became and what it is. And I know it's a very small part about what you do, but tell us what that is. And
yeah, so I was full service also, like you said, doing services in a salon until 2021. And so was doing bridal, but also doing full service salon. The reason truly why I chose to stop doing full service salon is because after COVID, there was such a shortage on products that I couldn't get what I needed for clients, number one, because they would be missing components. So like maybe let's say a hair care company, their secret ingredient is buckthorn. Well, they couldn't get buckthorn from Australia, whatever that is. I don't know. Or maybe there was a hairspray cap and the only component of the hairspray they couldn't get is the cap, so they couldn't sell it. So eventually with that and the cost doubling for hair color and scissors and all the materials I needed from that, I had to make a decision. I'm busy enough at this point. If I continue to do this, I'm going to have to start charging people double more than what I was charging them. Am I comfortable with that? And is this my stream of income? And what I identified is it wasn't my best stream of income. I was actually making significantly more money by specializing in just bridal because there was so much less product that I had to carry and so much less overhead because, quite frankly, the pandemic ruined it.
Yeah. Well, let's kind of dive into this then, because I think one of the things that I've enjoyed why I enjoy chatting with you over the years is because you usually have a pretty good head on your shoulders when it comes to how you're going to operate, what you're going to do next. I mean, to kind of solidify that, you're currently a sales director. You have a position as a sales director, and you've only been doing sales for a short period of time, which, again, those are the things that I love about you. I want to talk about how you take as an artist, because I know this show typically we are talking to artists. It's not very often that we talk to someone who has kind of, yes, you have a love for art. You have, you know, your style's awesome, you know, from the stuff that you do with weddings, which is why we reached out, and not just this relationship, but uniquely, you have a interesting way of looking at things. And how do you still satisfy the artist in you? And what part of that artist do you surrender in order to move where money is? Because I think that's important for people to understand who are freelancers and interested in doing this thing. It's very hard to do just the one thing. And I know we've talked about that a lot. So how did you navigate it?
Yeah, perhaps the most unfortunate part of that is, while I do enjoy the artistry and I would like to consider myself good at the artistry, at the end of the day, I would say one of the shortfalls of artists or 1099 or independent contractors or whomever is they get so attached to the art of it that they can't find or balance perhaps the most important component of it, which is the financial part. And so it required me taking a step back and saying, I love it. It's not laying bricks. It's not difficult to do. I love the creativity of it. However, I have to find out, is this financially beneficial for me? And it is. I have to find out how to make it more financially, you know, good for me or favorable for me. And what I found in doing that is I wasn't satisfied even just doing that. Although it pays well and you can create a fine life for yourself. So when I was offered my director of sales position, what I knew was that it was going to require working 7 days a week. But what I also knew is that that was the only way that I was going to get to the lifestyle that I desired to have for myself. So it took reflection and it took just identifying what was important to me. And some people would do it because they love it, even if they didn't get paid. I'm completely forthcoming on social media or what have you. I'm not one of those people.
Yeah.
If you told me tomorrow you can still do it and you love it and it's artistry, but you don't get any money from it, I would drop it like it was hot.
Yeah.
Okay, so for me, that's a big part of it. And for me, I'm so involved in the financials of it that I can tell you, like, if I do an updo, how many bobby pins it's going to take me, how much bobby pins cost, how much hairspray I'm going to utilize, how much is a bottle of hairspray going for. Like, I'm that chaotic about it in my mind and calculating it to make sure that the moment that it doesn't become fiscally beneficial for me, then, well, we reevaluate it.
Yeah,
We
you
might
can
have
cut
to
it.
move on to something else or a different format.
Yeah. And again, I think that's probably to think like that is a true entrepreneur, which again, from the get-go, when I first met you, I was like, this chick is just a mover. Like, she's gonna move, she's gonna go, she's not gonna be tied here. And really, you kept me there at that place probably an extra 2 years. Like, I was already ready to jump ship, but I was like, oh, okay, I found another crazy person. Like,
Yeah.
I'll hang out here for a little bit and see where this goes. And yeah, that's so. Tell me next what is your focus now, and how are you navigating a senior level position on top of owning a business? Are you trying to outsource in that business? Are you still doing all the work yourself? And then are you still looking for other streams of income on top of those what's your process nowadays?
Yeah, that's a great question. I love how you phrased it, another crazy person. So I know what you mean by that is you mean a person that if your work starts at 8 a.m., then that means that your 6 a.m. to your 8 a.m. slot is available. And that means if you work until 5, that your 5:30 to 11 p.m. position is available. And I think a lot of people don't think about life that way.
Yeah.
What they want is a 9 to 5 where they can clock in the morning and they can clock out at 5 and none of their work comes with them, but all of my work comes with me. There's never a time that I'm not available for my director of sales position. There's certainly never a time that I'm not available for my wedding business. And so I am just as involved as I ever have been, if not more so, in my wedding business. I'm working the sales director position during the week. I travel for that almost on a bi-weekly basis, I would say at this point.
Yeah, you're on the road a lot.
Oh, yeah. I'm trialing at night. I'm trialing on the weekends, and I have a wedding every single Saturday and most Sundays.
Yeah.
So that'd put you at 7 days a week and then plus nights and evenings and mornings.
Which is funny because when I asked you to come on the show, you were like, "I'll do it because it's your show, but I don't need any more business. Like, I couldn't possibly do. I'm booked for this summer.
Yeah.
If I do it, it's because I want to hang out." I'm like, "Okay, you'll do it for me because we'd love to have you on and chat."
Yeah.
But are you looking to outsource then, or how do you grow your business? Because there are so many, even if you are crazy like you and I, because I'm right there. I time block. If I am awake and not sleeping, my phone is on and available. I've fielded calls as late as 10 p.m. Like, yeah, dude, I'm here on the computer. What do you need? How do you expand if it's not bringing other people? Like, what are the plans for the wedding planning business?
So one thing that I've had to do is, because I don't have dates available, I've had to get creative in the way that I book things, which is another crazy person thing. So that means that I might have 3 weddings in one day. That means that I might start at 5 a.m. on one wedding, wrap that at 11, be at the next one by 11:30 or 12, leave that one at, 2:30, and then go to the third and final one. But a better way is like, how will it be scaled in the future? I have a great team that I work with. My best friend is a brilliantly gifted makeup artist, and another one of my very good friends is a dual artist, hair and makeup artist. And so I have people that I can lean on. I can't necessarily speak to what's next onto scaling it even further, but if we know me, then we know that I'll find a way to scale it even further, because I'm getting about to retirement age.
Yeah.
Every year I joke with the team and I say, this year is the year that I'm retiring. And so now I don't think any of them get it, because they're like 25-year-old females. I'm like the Albert Pujols of the bridal industry. Every year I'm like, I'm retiring. And then the next year I'm like, I'm back.
Well, that's why you're staying so booked.
That's why I'm staying so booked. And what's really worked well for me is I'm of the age where people are getting married. I know a lot of people. I'm born and raised in St. Louis. Luckily, a lot of my business is referrals, which makes it a little bit easier, obviously, than going into a relationship with a new client that you don't know. And so at this point, for a financial standpoint, it would be silly for me to step back within the next 1 to 2 years, because I'm at my prime, really, in my circle of influence.
For sure.
Now, I won't be able to maintain this long term because you just can't. And so at that time, I may look at other creative solutions, which at this point I can't divulge any further into, to have people there on my behalf when I can't be there, and obviously it be people that I believe are a true reflection of myself, because that's important to me. The work's good. I always joke, like, the work is okay, but really I'm a personality hire.
Yeah.
And I love that connection with people, you know, as much as I'm doing hair or makeup, which I'm not as passionate about, by the way. I'm doing comedic work for them,
Yeah,
for them.
that's a public good. It's a public
It
service.
is, and it's a service that God does through me, and
Yeah.
so it's good for them, but maybe not maintainable.
Well, what's funny is, again, I said, you know, you kept me there at that one sales job I was the only personality hire. I was really just doing the comedy routines for an empty room. You know, I get a laugh every now and then, but yeah, I stayed for the show.
And
know?
I'll tell you what, they didn't need 2 personality
No.
hires, which is what they ended up with.
Yeah.
And like, probably what people don't know is our demands are going to be a little bit different. You know, I remember you specifically saying, like, I'm not coming to Wednesday sales meetings because that's the day that I golf. And then alternatively, I would be in our office manager's office, like, I'm not working and selling unless I have a brown leather office chair. I don't want one of these cheap black threadbare office chairs.
And I'm laughing because we did those things not because we actually demanded them, because we were so bored. That was part of the comedy routine that we needed to exist in the corporate world. And you got that brown chair. That was the funniest part, that they ordered the chair.
The chair was this big. And I hated that chair. And then we had the golf, and it was like, just seeing what we could get away with.
Oh my God.
One year we asked for branded North Face jackets.
And you got them too.
We didn't need them.
Oh man, that was great.
And I love doing that for anything. So that's a cool part of my marketing, is I'll market anything. What I'm known for is, like, the divorce rate is almost 60%. If you don't use me as your bridal vendor for hair and makeup, that rate then goes up 40 additional percent, which makes it 100% chance that you'll get a divorce.
That's smart. Yeah.
And or
Gotta
one
use
I
you.
pulled this year is, I had done my best friend's wedding in New Orleans, and there was a picture that was taken from the photographer of me in the bridal pajamas doing her hair. So then I started marketing, for $250 additional dollars, I'll wear your bridal party's pajamas and get you ready so it looks more authentic. I'll do
That probably
anything
flew, yeah.
for $1.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Well, beyond hilarious, being able to work with you for a couple years. Great personality. I legitimately tried to get you to do stand up for those 2 years, because again, and I think maybe this is something that we can dip into a little bit. As someone who, again, I'm a lot like you. I'm an artist, but I cannot spend all my time doing the art because it doesn't pay the bills.
That's right.
You know, and I do love it, and I will still do it in my spare time, but I'm not going to devote all my time to it because I can't eat,
That's right.
So as someone who has to work in corporate to pay the bills, I find it kind of interesting that we both had the same coping mechanism of, you know, whether it's pulling stunts or I don't know if you, I think I told you this one. I used so we had a service that did portraits for people. And we worked in the funeral industry, but I sent my own portrait, and I can't get another one because they only do one for someone who's deceased. And so they're like, we can't do it, you're not deceased. I was like, just mark me down because I'm going to need this portrait. And I had sent that to Vegas to a boys' trip that I couldn't go to. And it's so, as an artist, I'm saying all that to say this, as an artist, what are some of the things that you do to motivate you in your corporate or I'll call them big boy pants, your big girl pants, your corporate hat, if you will. What are some of the tools and tricks that you do as an artist, as a creative, in that role to keep you sane?
I love that question, because when you have, I won't call it a backup option, but when you have a business that you've built yourself for the past decade, somehow what happens is that makes the corporate world more tolerable. Because at the end of the day, what you know is that whatever lifestyle you choose, which you could certainly choose a lifestyle in which you could be an artist and you could have that, but that's not what I want. So in order to have both, it's really a blessing to think, if I didn't want to do this any longer, I have built this other thing. And I would say that's probably what I do to keep myself sane. I can't necessarily pull the stunts anymore because
the higher
I
up you get, yeah,
yeah,
it's a little tougher.
it would look pretty bad. But that's what I'm proud of, you know, knowing that I do have options at the end of the day. And while today I choose this option and I like it and I'm good at it and I'm happy doing it, if that day were to ever come where I wasn't, then you just pick up a different hat and you just build that hat back up. And that's a skill that not everyone has either. People think that what would I do if I ever lost my job or if they laid me off or whatever? And it's like, anything. You can literally do anything and grow it and do it and financially benefit from it, and you would be fine.
Yeah, we're quitting jobs over here left and right.
Right. You don't have to worry about laying me off.
Yeah. I guess the interesting thing is there, when you start out so young with that mentality, and maybe it was because you were able to get done with high school so early, and as we operate through frameworks, it's like, oh, this is how this framework operates. And as soon as you jump out of one of those frameworks, you go, oh, but nothing bad happened. Okay, so let me try to jump out of this other framework. Oh, look, nothing bad happened again. Well, you were doing that at 16, and that's a very early age to jump ship of, this is what the status quo says I should do. I could jump out of this and then so as soon as you learn that pattern, it's like, oh, there aren't rules. Okay, let's just start trying some different ways to navigate other than the traditional.
Right. Every single one of my friends, and this is honorable. This isn't a dig. Every one of my friends is a dental hygienist or a nurse or has an office job, and they have 2 kids and they have a spouse, and they, they graduated high school and went to traditional college for 4 years because that was the outline of it. But I was raised by a single mom for 13, 14 years who was a bartender for 35 years, and she worked at 2 different bars to make ends meet. And what I consistently saw was that she had a difficult time making ends meet. And sometimes, if there had to be a decision made between, are we going to eat this week, or am I going to be a few days late on the water bill and they'll rehook it up tomorrow, she was making those decisions. And because I saw her have to navigate that, she worked hard. But what I said is that I am going to work so hard that I make sure that whatever the outcome is, I will not hopefully have to go through those difficult decisions. And I don't care what it costs me. I don't care what friendships it costs me. I don't care what relationships it costs me, what sleep loss it costs me, whatever. I'm going to do everything I can while I'm in my earning years in order to make sure that that cycle isn't repeated, because that's not what she would have wanted for me. In addition to, I lived through 2008 to 2010, where the economy really tanked. And my parents owned a jewelry store at that time, and it went out of business, and they had to file for bankruptcy, and times were very uncertain for them. So for me, I look back at all of those things, even when they did they appraised what the house was worth, and it was, $100,000 less than what they had paid for it. I'm looking at those things going, how do I prevent myself from going through this in the future? And I think probably the most unfortunate part is sometimes that comes from fear, a place of fear, not wanting that repetition. But that's what drives me to work really, really hard.
Fear's a hell of a drug.
Yeah, it is. And so to see those things and what they went through, I'm like, Now, I might file bankruptcy because it seems like that's an awfully good option at sometimes for people. So I'm not saying that was bad, but what I'm saying is that if I can be the driving force behind not having to go through those hardships, I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Well, before we let you go, is there anything that we didn't touch on that you wanted to chat about? How can people find you? Again, I know you're fully booked right now. How can they glean from all of you? Where can they find you?
Yeah, so they should still reach out to book.
You'll find a way.
Because I never know. I might squeeze you in. You know, you never know how lucky you might get. You can find me at ashlinn.ray.weddingday. What you may see in the future, even as some master classes that come out, that's a world that I'd like to start getting into. Maybe a quarterly thing where artists unite and we talk about maybe not the how do you do hair better thing, but how do you build your business better? That's something that I'm incredibly passionate about. And then I'd just like to, you know, probably end it with the thing that I'm most passionate about is that where we are right now with the economy and everything, like if you want to create a better life for yourself and you want to be able to save and you want to be able to invest and you want to be able to do better for you and your family, I don't want to call myself an example for this because I don't think that highly of myself, but consider this. Sometimes the 9 to 5 is not going to cut it for you. Sometimes you're going to have to Uber, you're going to have to DoorDash, you're going to have to hustle, get a second job, don't be ashamed of it. You need multiple sources of income, so find the thing, and you're actually in the perfect place to do it. Find a thing that you can do and you can make money off of on the side so that you don't have to be so incredibly reliant on the big giant corporation 9 to 5 job that pays your bills. Do it yourself, do everything yourself, work as hard as you possibly can.
Yeah, I think you know, if I can echo that a little bit, I think one of the things that you possessed coming in right into sales again was humility of like, I don't know what I'm doing here, someone help, right? And I think that attitude is very hard for us to take on because we want to feel like we know what we're doing, right? Like, oh, I got this, and you know, I can do anything. And if we can have the humility to say, yeah, I'm working 2 jobs. Usually, society sees that as a detriment. Oh, you have to work 2 jobs? No, I can.
Yeah,
I'm capable. Most people can't.
right.
Yeah, you know, when you can, do it.
Do it.
And yeah, I love everything about
Don't
that.
apologize for it. I mean, monetize off of it. I have friends like that have a bounce house, and I'm like, I think that's the greatest thing ever. Like, go and pimp that bounce house out. Like, have that thing out every single weekend.
Yeah.
It's the people that value that. Like, everybody thinks, well, I need my self. What do they call it? Self.
Your self time.
No, what do they say?
Self-care.
My self-care Sunday. Like, go to work on Sunday. Okay, you don't need self-care Sunday. You can do self-care 10 minutes when you've got them.
Yeah.
And so everybody thinks they're so deserving of that. And then they look and they're like, I'm not saying like miss out on time with your family or whatever if you care about that kind of thing, but it's like, you don't need self-care Sunday to do a mask. You need to work. You need to find a way to make money. And people love to be experts at things. Well, you couldn't possibly teach me anything. Well, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room then.
Yeah.
And you are a direct reflection of the 5 people that you spend the most time around. So if those people are low producers and those people are low energy and those people are negative influences in your life, get rid of them to improve your own life, because I swear they will take you down with them every single time. Find someone that's smarter, prettier, knows more, and more financially savvy, and you'll rise to the occasion with them.
Heck yeah. Ashlinn, you're always a pleasure to be around. Loved hanging out with you again, and thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me.